Welcome to the 10-step exceptional student education process. This video is produced by Disability Rights Florida, but is not a replacement for the advice of an attorney. You may request free and confidential information and advice regarding a specific special education issue by contacting Disability Rights Florida directly at 1-800-342-0823 or www.disabilityrightsflorida.org. This video is one of several available on our website and YouTube channel that was produced to assist you with aspects of special education services in Florida. In this video, titled the 10-Step Exceptional Student Education Process, we will cover the 10 steps in the process of a student becoming eligible for special education and then receiving services in Florida. In Florida, special education is called Exceptional Student Education, or ESE, and the 10-step process is often called the ESE process. The 10 steps are: 1. Your child is suspected of needing services and/or related services beyond what is provided in the general education classroom. 2. You, as the parent, sign consent for evaluations to be scheduled and performed. 3. Eligibility is determined. 4. Your child is found either eligible or not eligible for services. 5. If your child is found eligible, an individualized education plan or IEP meeting is scheduled. 6. An IEP is drafted. 7. Services are provided. 8. Progress is measured over time. 9. The IEP is reviewed, and finally, 10. Your child is reevaluated. Step 1. Your child is identified as a student with a disability in need of special instruction and possibly other services. It may be difficult to first learn this. Knowing the process may help. The process can occur in 3 different ways. 1. Through a screening and identification system called the Child Find System. 2. When your child's teacher sends a referral to the school's Child Study Team. Or 3. When a referral to the Child Study Team is made by someone else. It may come from anyone who works with the child, including you. As a parent, you can request that your child be evaluated. Interventions in general education are sometimes required for a student prior to the referral and evaluation process going forward. In some situations, the interventions must occur at the same time as the referral and evaluations. Strategies a teacher has attempted to use to assist a student before referring the student are documented in a system called RTI, or Response to Intervention. Response to intervention is a data-driven approach that includes assessments and intervention within a tiered and leveled system. This means interventions are provided at the school, classroom, and/or individual level. RTI is a systematic approach to try to maximize the student's achievement and reduces behavior problems. But RTI cannot be used to delay the evaluation process if the evaluations were requested by the parent. In those situations, and in a few others, RTI and evaluations should occur concurrently. Step 2. Your child is evaluated. Your school must do the following prior to any evaluation occurring of your child. 1. Provide you with a prior written notice. This means that the school must notify you in writing if they plan to initiate or change the identification, evaluation, or educational placement of your child or the provision of free and appropriate public education, or FAPE, to your child. 2. Provide you with a copy of your procedural safeguards. This will inform you of your rights and your due process rights should you and the school disagree on the findings of the evaluations. 3. Obtain written consent to do an evaluation on your child. The school has to request your permission prior to conducting any evaluations on your child. The consent should indicate which evaluations they plan on using. Initial evaluations and consent. Parents must sign consent to have their child evaluated by the school prior to the school conducting any evaluations. the school district has an obligation to conduct needed evaluations. If a parent disagrees with the school's evaluations, the parent can request an independent educational evaluation at the public's expense. An independent educational evaluation, or IEE, is an evaluation conducted by a qualified examiner who is not employed by your school district. Public expense means the district pays for the full cost of the evaluation. Initial Evaluations and IDEA 2004. During the 2004 revisions to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, language was added requiring school districts to conduct initial evaluations within 60 days. This revision helps ensure timely evaluations so services can start in a timely manner. The initial evaluation. This evaluation should be comprehensive and provide the team with a clear picture of your child's strengths, weaknesses, academic achievement, problems, and interests. The district has an obligation to provide an evaluation that identifies all of your child's special education and related service needs, whether or not they are commonly linked to the disability category in which the child may be classified. The evaluations are to be completed and reviewed with you prior to any decisions being made. Parents should request a copy of the evaluation report before the meeting where the results will be discussed with the team to ensure meaningful participation. This meeting is referred to as the eligibility staffing. Can the school refuse to evaluate your child? A school can refuse to evaluate your child. However, this is not common practice in most districts. If a school refuses to conduct an initial evaluation on your child, it is important that you request a notice of refusal in writing that explains the school's reasons for not conducting the evaluations and information to support their decision. A parent may challenge such a refusal by requesting a due process hearing. What do evaluations tell you? The purpose of the evaluation is to provide a comprehensive picture of your child's strengths, weaknesses, academic achievement, intelligence, and/or cognitive functioning, communication skills, independent functioning, social and emotional development, and how your child compares to peers the same age. When the evaluation is complete, you will have a better understanding of how your child is functioning in school. Medical evaluations versus school evaluations. The difference between medical and school evaluations can be confusing. They are not the same when it comes to ESE eligibility. A medical professional is the only one who can provide your child with a medical diagnosis, such as autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or dyslexia. When your school staff conduct their evaluations, they are looking to determine if your child meets ESE eligibility. For example, they cannot determine if your child has autism, but they can determine that your child meets the requirements outlined in state and federal law to be qualified as a student with a disability under the Autism Spectrum Disorders classification. More on evaluations. IDEA requires school staff to gather relevant information as it pertains to your child's functional, developmental, and academic performance. This should include information shared and/or provided by the parent. If you have an outside evaluation that you feel could provide your team with critical information about your child, you have the right to share that with your team, and they have an obligation to review and consider the information in that report. It is important that more than one evaluation is conducted on your child and that multiple professionals are involved in determining your child's needs. The evaluations must use a variety of assessment tools and strategies to gather relevant information. It's important to examine all areas of your child's functioning to determine not only if the child has a disability, but also the child's educational needs. A full evaluation should include assessment of the child's health, vision and hearing, social and emotional status, general intelligence, academic performance, communication needs, and motor abilities. After the evaluations are completed. Once the evaluations have been completed on your child, you will receive a final report at no charge. It is your right to obtain and review this report prior to the eligibility staffing meeting with your school-based team. The team will schedule a meeting to review the results of your child's evaluation. Schools should make every effort to schedule this meeting at a time that is mutually agreeable to both school and parent. Step 3. Eligibility is determined. The evaluations are reviewed and a team comprised of you and the school district's qualified professionals come together to discuss the results and determine whether your child is eligible for special education and under which category or categories. Often, they are different professionals than those who conducted your child's evaluations. The IDEA requires a representative from the local education agency, or LEA, a regular education teacher, an ESE teacher, an evaluation specialist, the parent, and the child, if deemed appropriate, to be present. Eligibility, staffing, and determination. ESE eligibility is determined by the criteria stated in Florida's State Board of Education rules. The team should consider ESE eligibility categories in all areas of the child's disability. There are 14 possible categories, and any categories the child is eligible for should be noted. Step 4. Your child is found eligible for ESE. If your child is found eligible for ESE, the team will use the information from your child's evaluation to develop an individualized education plan, or IEP. Your IEP team has an obligation to develop this IEP within 30 days of your child being eligible. Consider the IEP your child's blueprint to the specialized services and supports the school has identified that your child needs to be successful. Programs versus related services. There is a difference between eligibility categories, sometimes called programs, and related services. Related services are services your child needs to benefit from specially designed instruction. What can be confusing is when a category has the same name as a service. For example, speech and language is a category and a related service. Remember, regardless of the category used to determine your child's ESE eligibility, your child is entitled to any related services they need to benefit from their instruction. If your child is not eligible for services. If your child is not found ESE eligible through this process and you disagree, you have a right to appeal that decision or to request a reconsideration at a later date. Regardless of whether you agree, the school district still has an obligation to continue general education strategies to help your child. This is called RTI, as previously described. Your teacher and school team should continue to gather data on your child's progress. Additionally, it may be that your child does not require specially designed instruction, but does require accommodations. If so, you may need to work with your team to develop a 504 plan for your child. To learn more about 504 plans, you may visit our website for more information. Step 5. An IEP meeting is scheduled. A meeting with your child's individualized education plan, or IEP team, will be scheduled within 30 days of your child being determined eligible for services. You are an important member of this team. You are also an expert on your child and how he or she learns. This is a great opportunity for you, the parent, to share your concerns and educational goals with your child's team. Step 6. IEP is drafted by the IEP team. There are components of the IEP that are critical for you to understand and become familiar with. These areas are as follows. 1. Strengths of the student. In this section, it is important to focus on what your child's abilities are. 2. Concerns of the parent. This is where you can document your concerns for your child. They can be academic concerns and/or behavioral concerns. 3. Results of performance on district or state assessments. This is where your team will document your child's performance on evaluations, district assessments, or state assessments like the FCAT. 4. Present level of performance. This section should capture information about how your child is currently doing in school and how his or her disability affects performance in class. 5. Measurable goals and objectives or benchmarks. Once a child's needs are identified, the IEP team works to develop appropriate measurable goals to address those needs. Annual goals describe what the child is expected to do or learn within a 12-month period. Benchmarks, or short-term objectives, are required only for children with disabilities who take alternate assessments aligned to alternate achievement standards. 6. How progress towards the goals will be measured. Each child's IEP must also contain a description of how his or her progress toward meeting the annual goals will be measured and when it will be reported to parents. Typically, this is reported on a quarterly or 9-week basis through progress reports and report cards. 7. Supplementary aids and services. Supplementary aids and services are intended to improve your child's access to learning and his or her participation across the spectrum of academic, extracurricular, and non-academic activities and settings. The IEP team must determine what supplementary aids and services your child will need and specify them in the IEP. This is typically where a team would document the need for a one-to-one paraprofessional or other service to support your child while he or she is in class. When developing the IEP, a student's needs in the following areas must be addressed: hearing or vision, the need for positive behavioral support, any language needs should your child have limited English skills, what mode of communication is used with your child, independent functioning, social and emotional needs, if your child needs any assistive technology, if your child needs extended school year services or ESY, and the least restrictive environment for your child. Typically, ESY is not discussed until after the winter break and must be based on data. Least restrictive environment must be considered each year. If your child is 14 years of age, you should be sure to include supports under the area of transition. This section should discuss your child's post-school outcomes, diploma options, transfer of rights, which will occur when your child becomes 18 years old, and lastly, agency linkage. This is a good opportunity to bring in additional professionals who specialize in transition services and community supports. These individuals are typically knowledgeable in community assistance, employment, and living arrangements. Some agencies to consider are vocational rehabilitation or the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. Step 7. ESE Services Begin. During the initial phase of your child receiving special education services, it is critical that you provide the district with written consent for the services to begin. ESE services will not begin until your consent has been obtained on your child's first IEP. Signing your child's first IEP allows the school to begin services and put your child's plan into action. Step 8. Progress is measured over time. The IEP establishes how progress is measured and documented over time. Step 9. Your child's IEP is reviewed. At least once a year, the district must have an IEP meeting for the team to go over progress, goals, and services. This is when you should participate in a review of the data and help determine if your child is meeting the current goals on the IEP, whether changes need to be made, and what the plan should be for the coming year. However, at any time your child's need changes, you have the right to request or call an IEP meeting. We suggest that if you do call an IEP meeting, you put your request in writing to the school so that there is written documentation of your request. Step 10. Your child is reevaluated. Your school district has an obligation to conduct reevaluations of your child's progress. These reevaluations must occur at least every 3 years, but can be done sooner if deemed appropriate. We hope this 10-step exceptional student education process video was helpful. You may find other special education videos on our website along with information about other education topics. If you need more help, you may request it from Disability Rights Florida. Our services are free and confidential.